This is Rap the News, and prophecy is unfolding. We are living Revelation right now. Revelation 6:8. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, which is self-explanatory. The pale horse is the sickness. The sickness is coming from the dust that's coming from the planet, causing dust pneumonia and sepsis. And the name that sat on was Death, and people are going to start dropping dead like flies they are, and hell followed with them. Then brimstones is rained down, as mentioned in Ezekiel 38:22. Revelations 19:19 then furthers it. Then I saw the beasts and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to wage war against the rider on the horse. They waging war against the sickness and his army, and the army of God that's coming down, the saints. Let's get into it.
This is, in effect, a government on a wartime footing, a government calling for a collective national effort, as Boris Johnson would do, quotes, whatever it takes, warning of even more extreme measures to come.
We must act like any wartime government and do whatever it takes to support our economy.
We have never faced an economic fight like this one, but we are well prepared. We will get through this, and we will do whatever it takes.
It's a failing. Let's admit it. This is an unmitigated disaster that the administration has brought upon the population, and I do not say this lightly. We have had a much worse response than Iran, than Italy, than China, and South Korea.
We're about to experience the greatest pandemic of the generation since polio. Get prepared.
Mayor de Blasio, New York City, declaring a state of emergency this evening, saying, quote, we're getting into a situation where the only analogy is war, saying he foresees a situation where, among other things, hospitals are setting up tents in parking lots to deal with the patients that we might find. It's come to that.
Look, I think every household, regardless of what politicians and government leaders say, every household should declare a state of emergency. Get 3 months of food and necessary medications. Get 3 months of food and necessary medications. Get 3 months of food and necessary medications.
Yeah, that Trump is inadequately responding to the crisis. The White House has now had to walk back 3 of the statements Trump made during his national address.
We got it.
John,
that's what I think. And
I
think
can
we
be
need to
serious
move
and
forward.
sit here and tell you 4 + 4 = 85. I'm serious. That doesn't mean that I'm right. The information he gave was not right. You have to come back and clarify several times information that you gave. Listen, I tried to cut him a break at the top of the show.
You mean like who's going to get back into the country? You mean that, what is it in the clarification that you thought was so terrible? Tell me what you thought.
I didn't
was
say
so
I thought
bad.
it was terrible. I'm telling you that we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and every time this president comes out, he gives inaccurate information. So I don't understand why he would even come out and do it.
You said the president should stick to the script. I don't know if he stuck to the script or not, but whatever script he read was wrong because they've had to clarify it several times. And I just got to say, if the president came out to calm people's fears, he didn't do a good job of it because they've had to come back and clarify it several times. And this has been going on long enough for them to get it straight. We need straight, accurate information from this president and this administration, and we're not getting it. And I don't understand why you are tiptoeing around it. He came out, gave an address that usually that happens very rarely, and he doesn't get it right.
I'm going to tell you, first of all, he read it, and somebody that wrote this, look, I don't want to get into that. He was on today.
That's why you're here to talk about the president's address.
Can I finish now?
No, you can't, John, because we're here to talk about the president's. Wait, we're here. I don't want you to go on and deflect and talk about something else. And you said that someone else wrote it. He's the president. Even if someone else wrote it, it should be right.
I know he did, and he has to be Don. He put this thing out because there was some confusion out there. Okay.
Now there's more confusion, John.
And what I'm trying to say to you, Don, we got to move down the road. Looking back doesn't get things fixed.
We're not looking back. The president's address was tonight. That is the newest
I think his
information for
address
this.
tonight
Is
I
the
think it was
president's
fine.
address.
I think it was fine.
I want to focus on Europe because it's become the epicenter of the virus, and you heard European leaders imposing these measures restricting the region's way of life that has not been seen in 75 years of peacetime. The closures of schools, workplaces, non-essential shops and services. Italy, the center of the outbreak in Europe, has been under lockdown for more than a week now. Cases there reaching nearly 28,000. And you have other countries following in Italy's footsteps, including France. In that televised address, French President Emmanuel Macron ordering people to stay at home, invoking war in his address. France is also going to guarantee up to 300 billion euros of bank loans to companies. This comes after Germany is lining up as much as 550 billion of euros to emergency loans to companies. So EU leaders are also now proposing a 30-day halt to non-essential travel. You also have Canada and the UK placing restrictions on who can enter their country. And Trump there, you just heard a massive shift in his tone. This is after weeks of minimizing the impact of the virus outbreak.
So I think it's likely to be a gunfight out there. When I look at the world's big central banks, not a lot of them have guns. Maybe the Fed has a bigger gun than everyone else, but the Fed probably has a knife. I wish they had a big, powerful gun coming into this moment. I wish they had more ammunition. I wish for the discussions we've had on this show over the last 9 years, they had prepared themselves for an exogenous shock, because we certainly didn't know this virus was coming. But we knew that complacency in a world like this sets itself up for big tail risks. But you go to market with the Fed you've got, not the Fed you want. They've got a knife. There's a gunfight. You might as well go find some friends that also have knives and see if you can't do it together.
Frankly, as an economist, I don't know to what extent this is a demand shock. People stay home and don't buy anything. Or is it a supply shock? People stay home and don't make anything. I don't think anyone knows what they're doing.
Follow that through. If you don't know what's going on, you don't know if it's a supply or demand shock, I'm a little unclear what you're advocating. Act anyway, or wait until it's clear and hold off or hold your bullets back until you know essentially what the enemy is?
Well, obviously, we're in a war. This is like an alien invasion. This is a natural catastrophe. Hits an economy, and then it morphs into a financial crisis. But this one's really worldwide. And you know, the first instance is to protect people's health. But as you know, you're talking about one story after another at your show, the questions how to prevent this from morphing into something that lasts for a decade.
Well, back up for a second. We had an economist on CNBC in the last hour who said something about, oh, this is going to be 2 weeks. I'm not even sure it's going to be a recession. You are now talking about hoping that it's not going to be 10 years. And recognizing that it's going to be a year or two.
You got to be kidding that this is not going to be a recession.
I know. That's what I thought it was.
I mean, we are in a global recession, a U.S. recession, at least, you know, in the sense of a very deep downturn is, I think, a certainty. It seems to me likely that at least the short-term fall will be greater than anything we saw in the financial crisis. I think, as I said a few weeks ago, you know, we pushed the pause button on the global economy. No one, you know, we have all these industries shut down, and you know, we can see millions and millions of people lose their jobs. We can see unemployment go above what it went in 2008. It doesn't necessarily have to last as long, but this is very, very serious. Again, a lot depends on how it works out with the drugs and treatment, but you know, so far we're hopeful, but you know, if we have to do this, shutting everything down, that's clearly maybe the best thing. We're in a war. We're in a war. We're in a war. We're in a war. But it's the economic consequences are just profound.
Okay, you heard them talk about waves, and this is the first wave, and the second wave is coming, and it's gonna get far worse, and people gonna be dropping dead in the droves, in the millions. They are predicting that half of the damn planet is gonna die, if y'all really listening to what's going on. So the second wave, I believe, is when we get closer to the planet and there's more dust coming in, and people is going to be breathing in more dust and dying off left and right. Birds and everything going to be dropping out the air in the second wave. In the third wave, people is just going to be done. So they trying to get over the hurdle. They trying to prepare before all of this dust, more of this dust come down and people breathe it in. I don't know why they just don't say it's dust, because then they would have to explain the planet, I believe, and they don't want to explain that because then they would have to tell you that hell is out there waiting for you sinners. This is Raptor News.